You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we're combining puppets and drawing in Fab Facts.
15 is not a lucky number for the Randomiser.
and we're heading deeper into the archive with two Scots.
Great Scots, you might say. That's all coming up in pod 261.
Well, it might. Of the Gerry Anderson podcast!
Great Scots!
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Oh, you went all a bit sort of Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future there,
In a
didn't you?
really rubbish way.
Good
I mean, that wasn't an impression. Yours is very, very good. Gosh, you got to know you can do Christopher Lloyd as well as Trevor McDonald, Terry Wogan, many others.
And many others.
And Yoda, you just did there. It was very good.
Yoda?
Yeah, you just went. It was sounding very. Yeah, see, there you go, Yoda as well. I mean,
Yoda it was.
this is he's a man of
podcast of the Gerry Anderson it is.
a man of innumerable talents. We've just counted them on one hand, but they are innumerable.
Yeah.
His name over there is not Yoda. It's not Trevor McDonald.
No.
Nor is it Christopher Lloyd. It is, in fact, Richard James.
Yes, always has been, always will be.
Will it?
Yes, professionally and personally.
Okay, amazing. I mean, it's quite amazing that you managed to get Richard James when you registered with Equity back in the day, because surely there must have been some other Richard James.
Well, you're assuming I registered with Equity.
Oh, okay, let's move on.
And you are?
I have always been and always shall be Jamie Lionel Anderson.
Right.
There you go. For a middle name for which I was teased as a child repeatedly.
Why?
But now I own it because it's very cool. It's got a great origin story. And if you want to know more about that origin story, then you should watch Gerry Anderson, A Life Uncharted, a documentary on the life and times of Gerry Anderson. But moving on from that, actually, I wonder if Chris should add Uncharted into the randomizer. Moving on, the Chris of whom I speak is Christopher Randomiser Dale.
Oh, yes.
Which is his full name.
Yes, it is.
And a title you must always use.
Always.
And he joins us every week at the end of the podcast, just before Richard and I wrap up and say some silly nonsense.
More silly nonsense,
sorry. And he brings us the randomizer, which is a segment, one should say, where Chris uses a device called the randomizer.
Yes.
And that randomizer generates the pick for the randomizer section, which is a randomly chosen random episode from a random Gerry Anderson show, and Chris watches it and says things that you might find interesting and or entertaining.
Might.
Can't guarantee
Definitely
it.
will.
Well, no,
Really?
because what if you're listening and you're like, oh, I hate the Protectors, or oh god, I'm not really a fan of Captain Scarlet, or I hate Gerry Anderson shows. Maybe you're in the wrong place. Although we're welcome to everybody. You know, we're very happy to welcome anyone.
Haters,
even the haters. Because we might even turn you into a lover.
Oh, there you go.
Sounds a bit weird. Anyway, between now and the randomizer, there are many, many things that happen. So, Richard James, this week, in the style of someone from a well-known bank trying to get us through the security questions, please walk us through the contents of this week's Gerry Anderson podcast.
Oh, good afternoon. How can I help you? Yes, I just need to ask you some security questions. What's your first and favourite part of the Gerry Anderson podcast? Fab Fact? No, that doesn't fit the answer I've got here. No, it says here it's the Gerry Anderson news. Yes, it'll be coming up after the Fab Facts. That's right, and then we have the randomizer at the end, yes. And actually, I'm just breaking character for a moment because I wasn't quite sure where it was going. But also to say, I'm shaking things up a bit this week.
Oh, no.
There's a surprise. Well, as you may or may not know, dear Podsterons, we've got our live events next week at the BritSciFi event at the National Space Centre in Leicester.
We
We've got
does.
a live podcast, or recorded as live podcast, on the Saturday, and our very own live stream, Fab Live, on the Sunday.
Yes!
So I thought I would ask our lovely Facebook users in our Podsterons Facebook listeners group
Yes.
to send me some questions to ask you, Jamie Anderson.
Oh.
So we'll be coming to those as we go through the podcast, instead of our usual Facebook posts and emails. Is that all right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, just to mark the changes a bit, because live next week, so let's have something different this week.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What?
I
It's
look
all right,
forward
isn't
to it. Yes.
good, excellent.
You're not unbreaking character then?
Aren't I?
You're not going back to the...
Oh, no, I see. No, it wasn't really... That was really difficult.
Is
I
that's
don't
the
know when
first
this
one
whole-
that you failed at?
When did this whole do it in the style of thing start?
I can't remember, but I kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, I know you do.
But okay, fine. I'll try harder for one that's a bit more fun next week for you.
Please do. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a pleasure. Anyway, all right, well, before we get ourselves into any more of a sticky situation, I'll look forward to these little bits that you're threatening me with. But in the meantime, should we go straight into a Fab Fact?
Oh, you're threatening me now, are you?
I absolutely am.
Oh, go on then.
Watch it, sunshine.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
It is indeed the
Yeah.
Fab Fact of the
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
Don't normally call it that, but I have this week because each week I deliver a Fab Fact from our enormous tome of Fab Facts.
It's huge, isn't it?
It just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah.
It's quite
Ad
amazing.
infinitum. Ad nauseum.
Ad nauseum, absolutely.
Yes.
Ad mortem, in fact. So I will flick through it. Richard will shout Fab at a random point. I'll stop flicking when he shouts Fab, and hopefully there we will find a Fab Fact. So, Richard, are you ready with your Fab?
Born ready.
Good. My thumb is extra slippery today, so watch this space. Here we go.
Fab!
Did you hear how fast those pages
I
went?
did, yes.
Yeah,
Maybe
'cause-
having a slippery thumb helps.
I think it. I don't know why, but I just sniffed my thumb as if that would
Right.
somehow give me the measure of the slipperiness. Anyway, moving on.
We didn't have to know that, did we? Go
Richard
on.
James.
Yeah, yes.
I know, as all the Podsterons do, that you are an enormous fan of anime.
I wondered where that was going. Of what?
Anime,
Right.
aren't you? Do you want to name any of your particular favourites, or I just carry on the Fab Facts if you want?
I would just carry on while I think.
Okay, well, I have a feeling
While
that
I Google.
you may not be as much of a fan as I thought, but whether you are or not, it's worth knowing that the world of anime was very much influenced by the popularity of the Super Mario Nation series back in the 1960s. You can pretty clearly see that influence on Japanese culture in general, most clearly in live-action productions like Ultraman and the Godzilla flick Destroy All Monsters,
Right.
which contain quite a few Derek Meddings-inspired effects. Now, it just goes beyond live action. Anime itself was influenced by this stuff too. And in the 1970s, Mum and Dad travelled to Japan to discuss making an anime series with Tohoku Shinsha, which is a major distribution partner and production house that partnered with ITC at the time, who were doing distribution of the shows.
Aha.
Now, they later, sadly, parted company.
Right.
Dad went off and made Terrahawks, as we know it now, and Tohoku Shinsha's producer ended up making Thunderbirds 2086 instead.
Right.
But while Dad was in Japan, there was an anime series on the air with a familiar name.
Go on.
Cho Supercar Gattiga, I think is how we say it. I don't know, but I'm
Okay.
going to call it Cho Supercar for now. It was about an orphaned young man who races a solar-powered supercar.
Right.
Now, the supercar in question doesn't fly through the air, but it can jump really high. It also retracts its wheels, much like Mac's jet air car in Joe 90.
Oh.
But instead of taking off, it joins together with other cars to form a giant machine.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Now, the
I like
series has a lot of the kind of racing and a melodramatic plot involving a threatened takeover of the world by someone who turns out to be the hero's mother.
Oh, I like
interesting.
that. Yeah.
But by and large, Cho Supercar Gattiga would help keep the science fiction flag flying until Star Wars came out later that year and proved to the world that the genre was here to stay forever.
yes.
Well,
I should say
certainly for the foreseeable future.
Yes.
Now, beyond the name, the visual influences of Dad's work are evident in the show. Some of the examples of anime that are very influenced by puppet shows include Blue Submarine No. 6, which borrows from Stingray, Zero Tester, which owes a bit to UFO and a bit to Captain Scarlet, and most famously, Evangelion.
Oh. I've always read that as Evangelion. In my head.
Maybe it is Evangelion.
I don't know.
Evangelion. Sure. I mean, I've seen it written lots, but that's the first time I've ever had to say it. So,
I like that.
Please do correct me.
No,
there's loads of other stuff out there in the world, especially in Japan, that's got an Anderson influence on it. But what are some other anime series that you know, Podsterons, that borrowed from or paid homage to the worlds of Century 21, Super Mario Nation, or beyond, even UFO and Space 1999? Email us, podcast@gerryanderson.com.
Yes, great. I mean, was your father aware of these homages?
Oh,
and
yes.
What did you think of them? Was it okay, or did it smack a little bit of plagiarism?
I think he was very happy that all that stuff was that was inspired others, because obviously he was inspired by stuff as a young filmmaker and a middle-aged and an older filmmaker sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
So yes, it makes total sense that he would have absolutely loved all those little nods, homages, and borrowings.
Yes. Do you think anyone would ever make an homage to the Gerry Anderson podcast?
Ooh.
And how will we know?
Well, I guess if anybody starts using the word gubbins repeatedly in another podcast or a show, then we know that's that.
Right.
Or talking about clammy ears, or
sure. I mean, what other podcast talks about clammy ears?
Very few. I mean,
sticky thumbs.
You can really see how we're changing the world one podcast at a time.
It really does feel like it, doesn't it? One podcast at a time.
It really does. Yes, you're quite right. Anyway, Podsterons, if you can think of any other influences, please let us know. Email us podcast@gerryanderson.com, and that brings us clatteringly and awkwardly and with sparks flying everywhere to the end of this week's Anime Fact!
Yay!
Couldn't be anything else, could it? Thank goodness we got the right one there. Whew.
Yes, thankfully. Now, questions.
Oh, you've got... Sorry, I'm just putting Fab Fact book back on the shelf.
Yeah, no, you do that. I asked our lovely Facebook group if they had any questions for you or I, Jamie. And
or I or you.
Fair, quite a few of them did.
Oh, really?
For example, now Tom Hodden says, what are your go-to feel-good episodes for those rainy days when you need some comfort watching and junk food?
We're only talking from the worlds of Anderson, are we?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, weirdly, probably Time to Kill.
Ooh,
Space
really?
Precinct.
Space Precinct.
Just because it's such a sort of happy kind of go-to thing.
Sure.
I really enjoy it. And then maybe... I feel like Stingray, maybe, like Pink Ice possibly would be kind of sort of warm and nostalgic and a bit fun and ever so slightly camp.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I might interrupt you saying, a bit like you, but no, you weren't going to say that, were you?
No, I wasn't going to say that. It was far from my mind.
Okay.
But to be fair, it is a bit like you.
Okay, there we go. Yes. Anyway.
Yeah. For me, it would be any Space 1999, really. Any Space 1999, because it takes me back to being, 6-7 years old again. And also, I do get a warm glow from watching Space Precinct. I think I'm allowed to say that. Some of the better episodes, memories and all that.
And now you get a high-definition warm glow.
I know, isn't that lovely? Tom also says, of the many roles that you've taken over the years, Jamie, as writer, director, host and interviewer, do you have a favourite? What do you enjoy most?
I mean, it's very lucky to do any and all of them, really.
Sure.
I mean, the podcast is great because it means I get together with Dickie every week or two, and that is, that is a real highlight. And that's not me just saying it. That's very true.
Something to do, isn't it?
Yes, that's it. And for the right writing thing, writing is really fun, but challenging. For the wrong writing thing, or for one where it's just not quite working, I find it really difficult. Because you're quite I feel like you're quite disciplined. You just sit.
I get that impression. Yeah.
Yeah, you do. Get that impression, but it's when you're really stuck on something. God, it's a struggle.
Well, I always say that writing is problem solving. It's constant problem solving. How do I get this character to this point?
Yeah.
Oh, and they've got to meet that person along the way, and they've got to know about that.
Yes.
So how do I do that?
Yeah.
It's all problem solving, isn't it?
It is a lot of problem solving. So, yeah.
Good.
There you go.
Peter Lippman says, my question is, with the magnificent return of Fireball XL5 to talking pictures TV, Has Jamie had any success in persuading them to show any other Super Marination series? I hope so. UFO and Space 1999 have had good outings on other channels, but I believe the Sci-Fi Channel was the last to show any Super Marination series, and that's quite a few years ago now.
Yeah. Well, we had a good chat about it over lunch a couple of weeks ago when I went down to do the footage detectives with them. Mm-hmm. Very lovely people, very nice, and very happy to be doing it. I think the will is there. It's the way that is the problem. So they've got to license that content from ITV for the most part, and that's not always possible. It's not always commercially viable. It's not always affordable. There might be other things going on that get in the way, but I think they're definitely keen to. I'd like to think the Supercar might make a comeback. And maybe Stingray next year for the 60th anniversary. That seems to be a good time. Anyway, I'll do whatever I can to help Talking Pictures because, having this stuff broadcast again is really lovely, and it, means more people get to see it. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Great. Scott Anthony Bacleek says, Jamie, any more updates on more Century 21 adaptations and John Thaden adaptations of Thunderbirds yet?
I have a feeling in a couple of weeks after this episode goes out, that there might be a recording happening. Oh. But that's all I can say.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, you tease.
So there's definitely some stuff happening.
All right. Something in the air. Yeah, fair enough.
Something in the air.
And finally for now, David Hollis says, is there something in the pipeline that the podders should know or you want to tell but you can't? If so, please drop big hints if you cannot tell for now.
Oh, gosh. Yes.
Anything happening that you can drop big hints about?
Let me see I can think of a way to put this on record without giving it
on record
away. Yeah. I mean, we've alluded to a thing, haven't we, that we are hoping to do, which will be a bit of a change for the podcast, for the better.
There is that. And it will become very clear in the next few weeks what we're talking about.
Yes, you'll have 2020 vision of this thing
absolutely,
in due course. Is that, have we dropped enough hints there?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Yeah. All for now, but more questions coming up later in the podcast.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm very looking much forward to that in a different order from those words.
Thank you, Stanley.
Oh dear, I don't know what's going on with me at the moment. Anyway, let's move on before I make some more mistakes.
Yes, I think we should.
Should we go into some Gerry Anderson news instead?
Let's go into some Anderson Gerry news. Curses.
It's the Gerry Anderson news, probably. Yes, indeed. In the correct order, it's the Newsy Anderson Gerry News.
What? No, that's confusing.
That's confusing. Fused. Yes.
Carry on.
It's the Gerry Anderson News. So let's get going. Here's the first thing is something about BritSciFi. So let's start with the new UK warehouse. I've been banging on about it for ages, and we are now finally up and running. Many of you have benefited from it already because we've found some stock that was previously, had gone Walkies, let's say. But if you are in the UK, you can now benefit from $3.99 shipping or free if you spend over 50 quid at the Gerry Anderson store, which we've not had for a little while, so that's nice to have back. Mm-hmm. There are a few things that we are discovering as we move, little warehouse finds, and they'll be listed on the website over the coming days on shop.gerryanderson.com, along with, it's a good week for Thunderbirds fans, Thunderbird's towels, as of today, 1, 2 and 4 from our friends at Hoob. The Thunderbird 2 bottle opener, I mean, it's a must-have, right? Everyone wants one. You want one, Richard? Yeah, of course you do. Perfect for barbecues, home bars, or just if you like opening things with bottle tops and are a Thunderbirds fan. Also, a recent restock of the Bachmann AIP models, which is great. Now, if you're outside the UK, you're thinking, yeah, but what about me? Shipping's so frighteningly expensive still. We're very aware of that and we are working on it. I'm hoping we might be able to offer some international shipping options this week. It's a few technical hiccups, but I think we might get there. So stand by, but you are going to also benefit from some great new deals. Now, lots of you in the UK are coming along to BritSciFi this weekend, the 17th and 18th of June at the Space Centre in Leicester. We're looking forward to seeing you there. On the Saturday, we're doing a live podcast. On the Sunday, Fab Live.
Oh, yes. Looking forward to this.
Not sure whether we'll actually stream it yet. It slightly depends on the Space Centre's Wi-Fi, but let's see. But if you're there for the podcast, there's something very special happening, a world exclusive, we might say. So it'll definitely be worth coming. Lots of us will be there. We'd love to see you and have a chat, have a picture if you like. The Gerry Anderson store will be there in a very small way with a small selection of goodies. So pop along, we'll see you in Leicester. And finally, Terrahawks fans, Terrahawks newbies.
Yeah.
The 10th of the month just gone, because we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of Terrahawks on the 10th of every month. We just released the extended version of the pilot episode, part 1 of it anyway, Expect the Unexpected. That's available on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel, free of charge for you to enjoy. And we may possibly put part 2 up in a few weeks' time. So stand by for further action on Terrahawks. But for now, that is the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. Can't wait for BritSciFi news.
Nor can I. It's going to be lovely, isn't it?
Oh, 1 week to go.
Is that all?
I suppose I better start preparing for it.
Probably. I mean, you've got stuff to be doing, haven't you? You've got all those,
things
and that thing to practice. And
oh, can't wait. Now, I'm going to head straight back over to our Podsterons because they're gagging to know what's in your brain. And they've been asking questions.
What are we going to say then?
To tease out all that wonderful Gerry Anderson matter that lives between your ears. For example, Deck Goodall says, did Gerry or Tony Barwick have in mind or drafted a concluding story arc to original Captain Scarlet before Sir Lou asked Gerry what's he going to do next?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so, because they didn't really think like that, did they? They made these things and thought, well, we'll carry on.
Yes.
It really wasn't a thing back then to say, we'll close up this series and finish it off.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't think so.
Okay, Jonathan Westall says, is there a Gerry Anderson series that you would love to adapt for audio with Big Finish that hasn't been done yet? Because what have we had so far?
Well, most of them. I mean, we've talked about Scarlet, New Scarlet or Space Precinct, haven't we, in the past, which would be great fun. Would really enjoy those.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I think those two would be sort of top of my list, actually.
Yeah, and actually, if you want to see them, then, or listen to them rather, hear them, then the best thing to do is to email Big Finish and say, hey, come on, if you do this, I'll buy it.
Yeah, why aren't you making this thing?
Yeah, it would happen. Yeah,
vote with your emails.
Quite. Richard Goodborn says, 2 questions. 1, is there any noise on the Thunderbird Super Space Theatre films coming to Blu-ray? And 2, it's my birthday on the 21st after BritSciFi next week, so can I have a happy birthday sung in the newsy news style, please? All right, Richard, I'll have to think about that. But Thunderbird Super Space Theatre films coming to Blu-ray.
I would say, following last week's sad news about Network, that it's unlikely at this stage. You never know, but... for now, it's just such an unknown. I don't think we can say, sadly.
Lynn McKinnon asks, here's my question. Candy and Andy isn't everyone's favourite cup of tea. Is it being developed further into anything animated or being reissued with new stories done, as it would fit in more now than it did then?
Would it really?
Would it though?
Would it not in its original guise? I mean, it's a bit like the Joe 90 thing. You look at Joe and you go, well, through a modern lens, that's kind of child abuse and all that sort of thing. Here you've got living mannequins that are sort of adopted or captive bipedal pandas that live above a toy shop with a magic mini. I mean, it's sinister and psychedelic, and nothing's happening with Candy and Andy. That's one thing I can tell you for sure. Nothing, probably never. Sorry.
Right. Okay, fair enough. Ross Patterson says, Jamie, did you or were you ever tempted to write a fan-made story for Thunderbird, Stingray, Captain Scarlet, Joe 90, or any other Gerry Anderson's show while you were growing up?
No, because I was too obsessed with Doctor Who when I was growing up. And also, if I think there would have been a little bit of a kind of, if I did that, then Dad might have, poo-pooed it. No, not nicked it. He would have gone, I don't think it's very good. So I kept away from that. Yeah.
Yeah. Hugh Porter says, is there any way that international fans can enjoy the live podcast? Sometimes I feel like in the USA, Australia and New Zealand, to name just a few, we're left out on celebrating or having exclusive access to meetups with you legends, Richard and Jamie, etc. I mean, there's not much we can do about that, is there? What do we expect
other than
to do about
running it, streaming it live, but then...
Which is what we do.
We won't be live streaming the podcast, but that's because it needs an edit afterwards, whereas the live stream is live. I mean, that's the best we can do, really. Yes. It's tricky, isn't it? Unless you want to have some sort of virtual booth where you can watch people walking around the place, but it's not very exciting.
I mean, I have to say that, Dave Lawson put in the effort, didn't he? And came from Australia.
Not everybody has the means or the time or, is able to do that.
No.
Dave is a special case. Well done, Dave.
Yes.
We do our best to share it with you when we can and how we can.
Yeah. And finally, for now, Tabitha Hoop says, of all the Anderson-related projects you've both contributed to, which are you most proud of? I'm thinking of a single project, so maybe a book, an audio drama, a show, a documentary, etc., that you were involved in. If you want to go with something slightly less specific, e.g. the podcast, or more specific, e.g. a character portrayal, that's up to you. So which of the Anderson-related projects are you most proud of?
Well. I mean, I am really pleased with the Terrahawks audio dramas, particularly Volume 3, because we essentially retooled a main character and told an epic space battle story, which I thought was really fun and really lovely. And the closing moments of the final episode of Enemies, Negotiation and Deceit, which is the final episode of that Terrahawks box set, is really lovely, a really emotional thing and very special. So that for me.
Well, for me, I think the thing of which I'm most proud and enjoyed the most, actually, was 5 Star 5 and its attendant sequels.
Sequel S? Interesting.
That's a plural in there. Yes, I really enjoyed that. Having the freedom to take those characters and spin off into some new adventures was quite fun. Yeah. And also to tidy up a few loose ends as I did so. Yeah,
and you did a lovely job.
Ah, well, there we are.
Very lovely. Well done, you.
All for now. Plenty more questions to come, though, at the other side of the interview.
Oh, well, fine. I mean, if there's more to come, then let's hurry on in to hear a bit more from Scott Tempest-Mitchell, that's Scott T.E., and Scott Evans, that's Scott E.
Right.
The two guys from ITV Content Services up in Leeds, who were responsible for the HD restoration upscale of Space Precinct. They're going to share some of the secrets of restoring Space Precinct to its former HD glory, or actually never before HD glory.
Yeah, that's right.
And also some, thoughts of interesting stuff they've had and found in the archive and the future of restored content. So over to Scott and Scott now for part 2. So, I mean, Scott TM, we've spoken on the podcast before about why Space Precinct was such a tricky customer, because people look at shows like Captain Scarlet or Joe 90, which have had HD restorations, they've, new transfers, whatever. I think there's an element of which it's all a bit kind of film, tape, negs, prints. What does that even mean? So, because I'm sure you're used to talking to lay people such as myself about this kind of expert stuff. Why was Space Precinct a slightly different treatment and approach versus something like, say, Thunderbird or Captain Scarlet?
Well, when it comes to restoration or upscaling or, making something from SD to HD, the quality of what you start with depends on the quality of the outcome. So if you go directly from the negative, the film negative, there is so much more information in that little cell of a picture on a piece of film than there is on a videotape. So when you're analysing it, or when your computer program is analysing it from the film, it's got much more information to work with, much more defined lines and much more depth of colour and picture to work with. Whereas from a digital tape, that's simply not there. Thankfully, in the case of Space Precinct, the digibetas were still a very good quality picture. And I hope that comes through with the outcome. So we were still limited in what we could do, but we still had a lot more available to us because of the quality of the starting picture. And as Scott mentioned, there's lots of evaluation that needs to take place. Also, lots of discussion between our customer and us to exactly what it is they want at the end of it. For some people will ask us to transfer a VHS and make it HD, which is kind of a misnomer, because simply making something HD is changing it from the little 4:3 SD picture and making it so that it will play on a HD TV and not lose anything. It won't necessarily look better, but it won't look worse. What I think a lot of people expect when they say make something HD is to actually restore it and improve it and upscale it, which is what we did with Space Precinct. So what we were able to do with that, with our AI restoration tools, is analyze the picture, make it bigger, so it is actually HD, but then we could smooth out certain bits, make certain lines more defined, get rid of a little bit of the noise and any dirt and dust that may have been transferred over from the film when it was made into a tape. So that's the kind of evaluation that we need to do, the kind of dialogue that we need to have with people, and the approach that we need to take. And the good thing, again, about Space Precinct is that because the quality was so consistent throughout, the AI upscale was actually a very, very good way to do it, because there's bespoke restoration and there's AI restoration. The bespoke restoration, you can look at it scene by scene, shot by shot, frame by frame, and you can really tailor each and every part of it. But that takes much, much longer and therefore costs much, much more. The only sort of benefit you get from that is if it's going to be some huge cinematic release or something like that, or you just happen to have a lot of money and a love for that film. We've had people like that before. So with the AI restoration, it's much quicker, much simpler, much more budget friendly, but there are restrictions within that. So whatever when it looks at the file, it's looking at the entire thing. So it will do all of its degrain, all of its sharpen and everything at the same level throughout, from start to finish. But not every shot may be the same. So some shots, it will look brilliant. It will look perfectly clean and crisp and HD. And other shots, for example, if it's really dark, the grain and everything is much more apparent. But because you're only setting those to certain levels, it only gets rid of a certain amount of grain. So it shows up more because there was more to begin with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So that's the sort of the challenges we had with Space Precinct and the way that we've got to approach it.
Okay. So we'll continue with the kind of technical side of the Space Precinct thing and the process and the results, because we made some tweaks along the way. But Scott E., from your experience in terms of working with external people, AI upscaling has been around for a while, and I've seen it used in various ways. And sometimes you get it looks really great on a very small bit, like a title sequence or a little clip, but it hasn't worked terribly well for longer form stuff. I think people have maybe slightly turned their noses up at it for a while, and now it seems to have made some leaps and bounds forward. Perhaps that's the people behind it, like Scott TM and his team, just getting better at it. But are you seeing more call for AI upscaling, and do you think viewers, consumers are more accepting of it now than they were in the past?
You hit the nail on the head in terms of there's always going to be a resistance to, if we're looking at archive content, there is always a debate to be had about preserving the authenticity and the originality of the original assets. And I think the beauty of the solutions that we're lucky enough to have is that, yes, we have off-the-shelf AI solutions and tools. We also have bespoke restoration and color grading suites. So we've got different horses for different courses, so to speak. There is definitely an appetite for people to save money. There's always an appetite for people to save money. AI is one of the tools that can help people save money. And it's still in its embryonic phase, as AI is for so many different solutions in different industries around the world. But it's learning, and that's the very nature of AI. And the more people like Josh Clark, who's the head of our restoration team, gave a speech about this. He was on a panel recently at a focal event in the north of England, and he spoke at length about this. And it's this learning phase, and it's the feedback from the users and the teams that are using these tools to the people that are manufacturing this software that will ultimately lead to its success or failure. I think if we're talking about work or an archive or a program series, a Space Precinct, that required something more than, it needs more TLC than just a basic AI tool upscale. And it's had some refinement. Luckily, as Scott obviously just mentioned, the quality of the original asset, which is fundamental to the process here, enabled us to be able to do this relatively straightforwardly, whereas there are other assets, there are other collections where not all of the tapes and reels are equal, and they all need different levels of restoration. Yeah. So, going back to your original question, yes, AI, there is an appetite for it. There's always going to be an appetite for it. Will it get better? Undoubtedly. Will it ultimately replace some of the work that the restorations teams do? Maybe at some point in the future it will. But as long as there is a requirement for things to have a nuance, reel by reel, if it's film, or tape by tape basis, then it's going to need a human touch to be able to identify that and go, each one of these requires a certain level of focus and a different treatment.
Yeah. Well, the human touch thing, perfect segue, Scotty. Thank you. That's almost like you fed me the line. So, Scott TM, we did a test first. Well, I caused a slight hiccup first by sending you the wrong format of tape. So that was a good start, wasn't it? I sent you a D2 rather than a Digibeta, not actually knowing the difference, I'm afraid to say. But I do now. So once we sent you that first Digibeta to do a test on, you guys ran a test AI upscale, and there was a bit of me that thought, well, that is what the upscale is. That's it. End of story. But I came back and said, can we make some tweaks? And thankfully we could. So what I'm not expecting you to give the secret sauce, but what are the kind of parameters? How do you kind of follow up with someone difficult on their notes about how they'd like it to appear to kind of maximize the clarity of the upscale to fit with the way it was shot? Because we had some sort of disturbances on model shots that looked a bit odd, and you and Josh and co made it all better. How?
Well, without getting too technical and sending any of the podcast viewers to sleep, their video is broadcasting different states. There's interlaced picture and there's progressive picture, and that's all down to the sort of the way that the picture is displayed on the TV. So what we initially did is we put an interlaced picture into our restoration tools, and it did a very good job. But as you said, there was some slight little imperfections in there, and we were able to ascertain that was indeed down to the scan type. So we altered that. We created progressive scan types, and we put that back through again, which got rid of those little what they call aliasing lines, which some people may have seen without knowing what they are. If you're watching something on a streaming service or something, and you notice that something that shouldn't look like window blinds kind of has that window blind pattern on it, that's interlacing, and that's something that comes across from an improper transcode, shall we say. So we were made aware of that, and we knew that there is something that we could do to it to make it better. So we created the new progressive version. We put it back through on the same settings that we originally did, and we got the output that we had. There is also the option if a customer comes to us and comes up with something different that they've noticed or is not happy with. For example, there are some people that like some of the bespoke Blu-ray releases. They like their footage to look like it's still on film. So they want the scratches, they want the dirt and dust, they want all that. They just want it blowing up. So we can tailor that with the AI upscale. You can tailor it slightly, but as I mentioned before, it applies it to the whole thing. If we start chopping it up, that then starts to increase the price. And again, with bespoke Blu-ray people, they've got a very limited budget. So we just have to temper expectations, say, well, we can try altering this, but if we alter this, it might alter something else further down the line. So we've just got to try and find that happy medium. But because of the Space Precinct quality that we started off with, we knew that we could just tinker slightly and we would still get a good outcome at the end, which I think we did.
The outcome is very good, and the fans love it and really, responded incredibly well to it. It's given it a new lease of life. All the things that we wanted to achieve, I think, have been achieved. And we did an interview recently with someone who had seen the restoration, and he said it's just such a testament to the power of Anderson stuff that the team at ITV Content Services went all the way back to those original 16mm elements and repieced it together. He felt that it looked so good. He thought that you'd gone back to the original film elements, which are sadly lost to time now, we believe. So I think that's a testament to the output and the work that you've done there, that people thought it was a film restoration rather than an upscale. So you must be pleased by the response.
That's a pretty big compliment, I feel. It's a pretty big compliment, because some people they have their knowledge and they look at things and they will say, no, that's rubbish, because it's, to everybody else it looks fantastic, but to them they say, no, that's come from video, that's not an actual film. But yeah, if we can make something look like it's been taken from a film and made new and made better, then that is probably the ultimate compliment, really.
Yeah, well, take it, because it looks great, and I'm really, really pleased to see it. I I mean, Scott E, we got a little bit of press coverage and, people kind of enjoying it and liking it. And obviously we got to see Idris Elba in HD, which was a thrill for all of us. I mean, from your perspective, do things like this, projects like this, help kind of build the case for this kind of treatment of archive? I'm not looking for you to compliment us or say, yes, it's all down to Anderson Entertainment that we've got it. It's just, what's the downstream effect of doing a project like this?
Well, obviously, the more projects that we can do, particularly projects like this, which have got, not only a cult following to a degree, but also got, there's a fan base, there's an audience out there for it. It's a great calling card for, what we can do. I mean, interestingly enough, I was just recalling as we were completing the process for you guys, I had a visit with the archive, with the head of collections for a very large, well-established local university, who was just having a tour of the archive and meeting and greeting the teams. And he stopped. He stopped as he passed one of the team members of Scott's team who was working on the project. And he's like, hang on, is this Space Precinct? I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh my God. And he could see the difference. He's like, wow. And he basically said, right, I'm going to subscribe to a very well-known and associated streaming service with our business purely for this. And it sounds like a blatant advert. It's not. They were his words. He's like, that looks incredible. I love this series. It was obviously of his generation. And in my ignorance, I was fully exposed to, Gerry Anderson's back catalogue as a child growing up and loved, some of the titles that Scott's mentioned earlier and in this, and things like Terrahawks as well. We talk about it, you go into all these different things. And I wasn't aware of this series myself, because it was just after I was now in adulthood at this point. I wasn't really exposed to that. I moved on to a different stage in my career, in my life at that time. But yeah, it is amazing. People are already talking about it. People come up to us and they're like, yeah, wow, we've seen what you've done with Space Precinct. And we're so impressed. We think he looks fantastic. So yeah, it's a great calling card for us.
There you go. Perfect answer. Exactly what I was looking for, Scott E. Thank you. But no, it's really lovely. And Space Precinct has always been, I think, the kind of a poor cousin to many of the other Anderson shows, partly because of the material, the time it was made and all the usual kind of political distribution stuff that surrounds these releases. But I think it's given it a new lease of life, and I really hope that continues. Just as we wrap things up, we've kind of touched on some of the Anderson stuff, but for you both and kind of your experience with Anderson stuff in the past, have you got a favorite Anderson show or element? And when you answer that and have that in mind, how can you see a kind of genetic link, I suppose, to Space Precinct? Does it feel like it comes from the same canon now that you have done this beautiful HD restoration? Scott TM, I'm going to throw you to the wolves first. What's your favorite Anderson thing?
It's difficult to say really, because there's two that I remember being exposed to first when I was very, very young, sitting at home in front of the TV with the big push buttons on it. That's how old we are. And it's the Stingray and Terrahawks. They're the two that really stick into my memory. The ones that I could probably still sing the end theme tune to Stingray, which I'm not going to do. Don't worry.
Oh, me too.
There's a duet.
Marina.
There's a duet on the way.
So yeah, they're probably my two favourites. And yeah, I remember seeing Space Precinct on its first run, or certainly the BBC run.
Yeah.
And I knew it was Gerry Anderson, but I never sort of conflated the two with the supermarionation and the Space Precinct prosthetics and things like that. It wasn't until seeing it again when we were doing the work that you could see the creativity and the tricks and tips learned through decades of Thunderbirds and things like that, how he could manipulate the camera, like the old trick of the matte effect shot, where it would be a film picture of somebody in a town lane, but they built models up around it just to give it more oomph.
Yeah,
just seeing those little tricks and things like that, it's like, yeah, okay, I can see that this is something that's been crafted from years and years and years of experience, and it really shows. And it's still the physical effects and a lot of the model work for me still stands up today. it's that good.
Yeah. Oh, well, good. Steve Begg, who did the effects on Precinct, he loved the restoration as well. He was really impressed by it and the work, and he'd be thrilled to feel that you kind of could see a connecting line from the effects work on Thunderbird and stuff. But I think it's right that you had those generations of effects artists who kind of cut their teeth on Anderson stuff and then went on to do bigger and better things, and Meddings and Brian Johnson and Steve Begg. They're the kind of the big three. So yeah, I'm glad. Good Stingray and Terrahawks, unusual pairing. Good choice. Scott E.
Do you know what? Great minds think alike. Great minds think alike. I would have gone down the same route, but there's always other options. But yeah, I think Stingray, same reasons. It's interesting. It's now of a generation. So yes, the slightly unusual and the theme tune at the end and the closing credits was haunting, but beautiful at the same time. And obviously, Terrahawks was kind of in that sort of my generation, slightly older as well. But going back to, obviously Thunderbirds. Yeah. Thunderbirds was, it was a stalwart of growing up. Thunderbird 2, I had that as a child. The actual die-cast model with Thunderbird 4 coming out. I had the little scale. I don't know whether it was dinky or whatever it was. Probably worth a hell of a lot of money if it was in original condition and original box now. Yeah. And that was, I had a lot of pleasure playing with that toy amongst others. Scott was the only person as a child, the only person on a TV show with my name growing up, pretty much. So that, I did make the connection, even though I was just enjoying anything to do with science fiction, and still do. It's a guilty pleasure, No
guilt, Scott. It's just pleasure. No guilt.
And when I look at, going to Space Precinct, even being, ignorant of the series myself, when I first saw it, when I was looking at, the effects like Scott was mentioning there, when I was first seeing, I'm going, you know what? I'm looking at effects here, and again, I don't want to, because it's probably not as good as what we've now got with a HD upscale. If you look at the technology that they use in like series like Red Dwarf, when the spaceship's traveling at the beginning, stuff like that, I'm thinking, well, there's a series that came out and ran for many years after this. And even though Red Dwarf, it's a comedy series, its technology still is relevant, and the quality of what I've seen in the upscaled Space Precinct is better than that.
Yeah.
And you can see how it's impacted other people in the genre, the techniques that are used, and obviously, you can go on and on about this, but you can see where things have married up and people have used influences from your father's back catalogue. And it's a great testament to his body of work.
Well, what a lovely thing to say. Thank you. I don't feel like I cornered you into that at all. But Peter Ragg, who was the effects director on So Much Red Dwarf, again, cut his teeth on Thunderbirds. So the links are all over the place in the industry. So Scott and Scott, the confusingly named duo, thank you so much for your time and all the kind of explanation and stuff. Because, we don't often get a chance to look kind of behind the curtain at the people and the machinery that get this stuff to our screens, and I'm sure that the Podsterons will be thrilled to hear your recounting of it. If people want to kind of follow ITV Content Services, or you personally perhaps online, where can they do that, please?
They can reach out to us via the website. I mean, it's a kind of poison chalice for us. We've got one of the few websites that has contact details for ITV. We strictly stress at this point for our content services team. So we're nothing to do with the programming on the channel, and we have no control over that. And we have to field a lot of those unfortunate emails when people are not exactly happy with something they may have caused offence. So we apologise, but it's nothing to do with us. But they can reach us very easily on there. Obviously, they'll find some social media exposure for us on the likes of Instagram and your Twitter accounts. You'll find us easy enough on there. But yeah, if you have any queries, if you just want some general advice, Scott's team are super passionate. All of the guys are super passionate. There's no obligation. If you just want to chew the fat, get some advice as a starting point, if nothing else, we're always welcome to have those conversations with anybody,
Awesome. And if, Podsterons, you want to say something nice about the Space Precinct restoration, then I'm sure a nice message wouldn't go amiss over at ITV Content Services. Scott and Scott, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our chat. And thank you for doing such a stellar job on Space Precinct and giving it a new lease of life.
Yeah. Thank you for that. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure working with you. Hope we do again.
Well, I thought that was rather different to some stuff we've had in recent weeks.
Yes, lovely.
Really nice, really different insight into the technical side and all that. And as you heard from Scott E at the end there, they would love to hear from you. They love to work on external projects. If you've got a great big bank of Super 8s and 16 mils, or even some high 8 old video camera tapes from 1992, they can probably help you with that. So go to the website itvcontentservices.com and you can find them on social media and send them questions, and they would love to hear from you, and they're quite responsive, so they'll probably email you back.
Oh, that'd be nice.
There we are.
Yeah, great. You're listening, as if you didn't know, to the Gerry Anderson podcast. Couple of things you can do for us.
Oh, yes.
If you're feeling inclined.
Well, not really, actually. I'm a bit tired.
No, come on. Just do as you're asked, please. Subscribe.
Yes,
it's quite simple.
I'm on it now.
Yeah.
Doing it now.
Oh, you've done that. Okay, fine. What about the review or rating?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
We do that?
How do you spell buffoon, by the way?
Oh. And finally, copy and share the link on all your social media profiles so your friends get to listen to the podcast too. How about that?
I'm doing that right now as well.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, and
nice.
tweeted. Yeah, done.
Right, good, excellent. Now let's get back to some questions from our wonderful Podsterons. Penny Jones says, help, I can't justify buying any more T-shirts. Are there any plans for more homeware merch that I could spend my cash on instead? I was disappointed to miss out on that cosy-looking Moonbase Alpha throw, but I do have a full set of Gail Myers-Co's control panel mugs and coasters, which I love. Would you consider collaborating with her again?
Absolutely, potentially. We are looking at all sorts of other things homeware related.
Nice.
And in fact, of course, you will have seen by now, I'm sure, our fantastic Thunderbird 2 bottle opener.
I like that.
Which is rather cool. I mean, that's homeware, isn't it? That's extremely limited edition, but yes, nice. Well, there's a start for you, and that's definitely not a T-shirt. Don't try wearing the Thunderbird 2 bottle opener.
Space Precinct toilet seat?
with Orin's face on.
No, let's not go there. Steve Bushell says, how about some socks? I could then wear Thunderbird 1 on one day, 2 on Tuesday, 3 on Thursday, and 4 on Thursday, and 5 could be for the weekend instead of wearing one pair for the week.
Oh, and then a Fab 1 on Saturday and Fire Flash on Sunday.
That could work. Yeah, socks would be great, actually, wouldn't they?
Yeah, we've done a few socks and things before. Yeah. That's definitely a possibility. We did Space 1999 socks and they weren't very popular. And we did Captain Scarlet and the Mistron socks and they were very popular. So
right, okay.
Swings and sockabouts, isn't it?
Yeah. Hey, now, here's a question, Jamie, that we often get.
Do we?
Peach Harding says, one for Jamie, are there any future plans for Firestorm?
Oh, goodness me. Yes, we do get that one. I think we've mentioned before that
and that's understandable.
The thing called development hell. And that's all I can say. These things get stuck and tied up with distributors, financiers, contracts, all sorts of stuff. People ask for millions of changes. In fact, there's that fantastic Twitter thread from that LA-based producer saying, I've just done the 17th rewrite of a project which has taken 19 months so far, and I'm not allowed to talk about it, and it's very tedious. And very much in the same area there. So, yes, there are future plans, but we are at the mercy of the media industry.
It's really not that easy just to say, I'm going to make a thing.
No.
And I'm going to make it like this, is it? Because you're beholden to other people because you can't do it on your own. Then you need other people to invest their time and money into it. And of course, along with their time and money, they're going to want to have a say in what you do.
Yeah, skin in the game, all that sort of stuff means they have a say. And it's, the world of this stuff is extremely complex. It's not like the old days where you could go to Uncle Lou and say, Lou, I want to make a show about a man who dies and comes back and is indestructible and we're locked in battle with some people on Mars who we can't see. How about it? And he'll go, sounds great, off you go. That's just not the world these days. In fact, I think I've said before, the average from conception and pitching to being on screen is currently 6 to 10 years.
There you go.
So there's the timeline you can expect.
Yes,
sadly.
There we are. But in the meantime, of course, there is lots to enjoy from the world of Firestorm. There's a mini-sode, which is available to watch on the YouTube channel for those of you who didn't get the Blu-ray back in the day. Also, lots of behind-the-scenes footage of how that was made, and puppet tests and all sorts.
And also, there's loads more stuff beyond that. I mean, you've got First Action Bureau, you've got 5 Star 5, you've got Intergalactic Rescue 4, you've got the Thunderbirds audios. It's the new, the unseen, the lost, the continued. There's so much out there. Which I'd love for you to enjoy because it's all coming from the same place of spirit and wonderment, as Dad said.
First Action Bureau, did you say?
Yes, First Action Bureau.
Interesting. Rebecca Andrews says, what are the chances that Torchy will appear on the live episode of the Randomiser in Leicester? Seriously, in 250 plus pods, you've been lucky to attract many guests from across the Anderverse, so who would you like as the dream guest, from past or present, to appear on the pod?
Well, it's tough on the live one, because obviously the other guests who are there have got things to do, so we can't drag them in. That's not going to happen.
Yes, yeah. A dream guest.
Dream guest?
From past or present?
My dream guest is...
I guess Anderson related.
Yeah, all right. I'm not going to be, name some completely unconnected party. I mean, if we could go back in time, Derek Meddings would be a fascinating one. That ain't going to happen, though, obviously. And similarly, Ed Bishop would have been fantastic, because he would have been so enthusiastic and so fascinating, and just that lovely voice. So, shame we can't have them.
And I'd love to have heard from Martin Landau as well.
Yes. Yeah, he would.
Because I'd love to know what actually went on, during those years at Park.
But would they tell you? Would they really tell you, or would they maintain that?
They would now, with a sort of benefit of distance. And,
maybe.
Well, CJ List says, not a question really, as I think most of the questions I've had have already been asked. But I'd like to congratulate the podcast for reaching 250 pods. I would also like again to celebrate this amazing group of Podsterons, keeping everyone sane through some very strange times and being there to support each other when they were needed. You don't just let Torchy invade the live podcast again. Keep him locked up in the space pen this time. And that's from CJ List. Yes, we'll try our best. But yes, our wonderful Podsterons deserve to be celebrated, because they are really what make the podcast what it is. And it's a very supportive group. And it's great that we're all going to get together, or some of us, in Leicester next weekend.
Yes, can't wait for that. And they are lovely. And I occasionally check in on the podcast and just see so many nice supportive messages and so much positivity. So well done, you lot. Keep it up.
Absolutely. Yeah, all for now. There you go.
Good. Well, from the Podsterons keeping it up to the Randomiser General keeping it up.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he's been doing the Randomiser for all this time, for the last 260 pods, hasn't he?
Got you. Right.
So, 259. So, Chris is here every week with the Randomiser, and he just tells you some stuff about an episode of Anderson, basically.
Yeah, I know. So, I've heard it before. Yeah.
Oh, well, I
listen every week.
You don't need me to explain it to you, so should we just go straight to the Randomiser?
Absolutely, yeah. Come on, then.
All right, take it away, randomly, Chris.
Well, what a nice day for a walk in the woods, eh, Marina? The sun is shining, the birds are singing,
All right, mate, in here. Come on.
The gangsters are hanging around next to trees.
Oh, you just stand there, keep very quiet, and you might not get hurt.
Well, alrighty then. How long do we keep this up?
You can't be too sure these days. Till you know who you're dealing with.
Oh, I see. Well, my name's Chris, and this is Marina.
I did have a friendly chat with your missus, though I haven't had a chance to make your acquaintance yet.
Well, now you know.
Yeah? That's good. No hard feelings, eh? I like to get things quite straight,
No, I quite understand. Marina, you never told me you were chummy with gangsters.
The trouble with women is, in a good mood, they're always talking.
Oh, well, that would explain a few things about my relationship with Marina.
Now, come on. Sit down.
Oh, thank you, that's most kind. Since you seem to be loitering without intent, any chance of pressing the button on the randomizer for us today?
If we help you, can't be for nothing. I work to the rules. Rules of thumb, as you might say.
And a very well-placed thumb that was too, yes, thank you. Now then, what was that about doing you a favour?
Stick around. Tomorrow you'll find out.
Oh, well, I shall look forward to that. Right, let's see what we have today. Oh, well, it's Captain Scarlet today.
Good.
Yes, indeed, with Fire at Rig 15.
Well, see you around sometime. I'm glad we got that little misunderstanding sorted out.
Yes, well, cheery bye. Oh, what a nice chap.
Leading the fight, one man fate has made indestructible. His name, Captain Scarlet.
So, as we welcome back to the Randomiser, the original Captain Scarlet, I have to mention that it's been quite a long time since I actually sat down to record a Randomiser. The last time I did this with Wings of Danger, I recorded on the 19th of April. This is now the 9th of June, the day before I need to deliver. I've left recording this very late, unfortunately. It's very sloppy of me, I do apologise. But a lot has happened in that time. And I find it
Vibrator stopped.
rather appropriate and somewhat sad to note that following the demise of Network Distributing, who released all these lovely Anderson shows and many more on DVD and in many cases Blu-ray, we get an episode of one of their lovingly restored HD high-definition Blu-ray releases with Captain Scarlet. And not only that, but an episode that looks gorgeous. If nothing else you can say about this episode, the visuals are stunning. But as we watch these two chappies on the oil rig, do a bit of
what's the depth now, Charlie?
Setting up of drills and things. This is Charlie and
we're near the oil strike zone.
This special oil
McKinley
is certainly a long way down.
Yeah, but ultrasonic drilling is pretty fast. We'll soon strike.
I hear Spectrum want this fuel urgently for their refinery at Ben Sheba.
Now that's a place you should see. The processing plant there is unique.
I love the way that dialogue is presented, and I know we have to get the information across to the audience somehow, but it just seems like that conversation is a sort of day one. They would have had that the first day they met each other, and explaining how the drill that they worked on worked, and what the fuel was used for. But hey-ho, it looks lovely. Both Rig 15 here, for this is where we will have the titular fire, and the Spectrum refinery at Ben Sheba. But while these guys are drilling... Oh, you'll have heard me say so many times on the Randomiser, oh, I hope they get round to doing the Secret Service on Blu-ray, or Four Feather Falls, or The Protectors, and now... Oh boy, I don't think we're going to see any more. It's such a shame, but it's also, you have to think, first and foremost, oh my goodness, an awful lot of talented and nice people, in my experience, have lost their jobs. But it's also important to remember what we have had. And for a long time, the thought of this being available in HD, and Joe, and Stingray, and Supercar, and Fireball, even those better quality copies of Terrahawks, and of course UFO in 1999. All those little archive bits and pieces, like with You've Never Seen This, and The Lost Worlds, and even Crossroads to Crime, and even Torchy. Nobody else would ever have released a lot of that stuff. Certainly not restored like this, as we know from experience. In the case of Thunderbirds,
cut this iron.
ITV are quite happy to throw out a bare bones, cropped into widescreen,
look at that gauge,
bare minimum version of Thunderbirds on Blu-ray and call it a day.
I just keep going a bit longer.
Network were always about going the extra mile to create beautiful restorations and gorgeous packages, and they will be missed. And I've waffled all over, it's...
Well, over to the lab.
It's fairly obvious. Here we are on the rig, there's a bit of drilling going on. There's a very important valve, and wouldn't you know it...
Hold it.
The Mysteron rings have just passed over it.
Pressure is still rising.
This also makes me think of...
Can't be that high.
Sea of Oil.
Stop the drill.
Which I seem to recall we covered not that long ago, although it may be longer than I think at this point. It's just interesting to see...
I can't understand
the difference in how the rig and the drilling process is presented in that episode compared to this.
Valve must be open.
And also in terms of how the set looks.
Go and check it.
It's too late. We'll blow.
Because this is a far more realistic setup, I think, than that episode.
He's gonna blow! Everyone up!
And the destruction...
Leave everything, come on!
...is far more believable as well. Although...
Let's go!
Sea of Oil did give us that gorgeous shot of the oil rig exploding straight up, that tower just going... that was in the opening titles of Stingray. But we're not talking about Stingray nor Sea of Oil, we're talking about Rig 15, and Rig 15 is a wobblin'. We don't see anybody else on it except for these two guys. Oh, there might have been an extra hanging around earlier.
This is far enough. We're safe here.
I hope.
He comes.
Yes, we don't really see how they get off the rig and get away from it so fast. But it's a very convincing effect, this. The pressure of the oil coming out. And then we get the line.
What it needs now is one spark.
Oh, I'm sure that's not going to happen. Even though we know the title is Fire at Rig 15, because that's already come up. We're just waiting for... Oh! One of the most gorgeous explosions in all of Anderson history, I think. And then just this image. Now we have, obviously the rig is destroyed, but now we just have this great plume of flames shooting up from the centre of the desert. It's gorgeous, and crucially as well, I think they do a really good job in creating a grand sense of scale for the thing.
We have observed the pathetic attempts of Spectrum to combat us.
Oh, cut to that shot of Colonel White. They've noticed us! They've noticed us!
Render them powerless. We intend to immobilize the whole of Spectrum.
Meaning the vehicles, which means they'll have to walk. Or run, as the guys on Rig 15 managed to do very quickly. Oh dear. Still, nice of the Mysterons to once again tell us what's going on. Very kind of them.
Is it absolutely certain that the fire at Rig 15 was a deliberate result of sabotage?
Yes, sir. The drill and superintendent reports that a master valve was opened, and this was not done by accident.
Right. Call a meeting of Spectrum personnel in the conference room in 10 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Doesn't matter who you find, just get anybody. Get Dr. Fawn in there. Why not?
You have all heard the latest Mysteron.
Yes, Scarlet, Blue, Grey and Fawn are present for this meeting.
I think I know, Captain Blue. When they say immobilize Spectrum, the Mysterons mean they intend to render all our aircraft and vehicles useless.
Much like ourselves, in fact.
Vehicles are scattered around the world. It would be an immense task.
Indeed.
I also love that. I think that the initial shot of the captains has been set up to imply that the rest of them might be around the table, but then you see this shot that proves Ochre and Magenta aren't there. But I just wonder why Fawn is there.
Finery were destroyed.
There's no way he's going to be involved in this operation, and yet he's put on his uniform, he's put on his hat to come to this meeting.
Captain Blue?
Yes, sir.
Sir? I want you to fly out to Ben Sheba right away. The Angels will accompany you.
SIG.
Dr. Fawn, just go back to doing whatever it was you were doing. Oh dear. So yes, it's a good old Scarlet and Blue mission, as always.
It was 2 and 3. Immediate launch.
I always wonder about that shot of Lieutenant Green ordering the Angels to launch, though, because he's sitting down. And I just wonder where he's been, if there was some sort of deleted material there. Maybe he was at Colonel White's desk talking to him. It just seems odd that they would film him sitting down when we had no indication that he had ever left that chair. Are we going to get the cool... Yes, this is a lovely shot. Scarlet and Blue in the cockpit of the passenger jet, and Blue looks out the window. There's a model of an Angel Interceptor flying alongside. Ah, lovely stuff. I also love that little bit of Spectrum music.
Pipeline, rigs, and storage tanks to cover. Where do we start?
We'll start at Rig 15.
We'll start at the thing that's already on fire. And then if the fire spreads, we won't be blamed.
There it is.
Oh, it's beautiful. Love the sparks and flames and bits still falling off it.
Flames must be 1,000 feet high.
Sure. It's the most frightening kind of fire there is.
A really, really big one.
That's a job for an expert. We hired the best, Jason Smith.
Yes, in this part of the episode, the whole Jason Smith thing.
The fire making his...
I believe this is based on a real-life character, a chap named Red Adair, and I do not know too much about him, but I believe that he was sort of a celebrity in terms of professional firefighters. I looked him up a little while ago, and...
Accident. Right.
This was 67. In 69, he was putting out a big fire in Australia, but in 62, he had put out something called... I don't know where it was, but I think the fire was called, like, the Giant Cigarette Lighter or something.
Blue of Spectrum.
So I suspect that incident...
This is my truck. Why don't we...
Sorry, I love that. I love that. I've forgotten about that bit. Oh, this is Captain Scarlet and Captain Blue. Yeah, this is my truck. Say hello, truck. The truck doesn't have a name yet. Oh dear.
Yeah, but at least we can hear each other think.
But yes, Red Adair is almost certainly a huge influence on this episode and this character.
Explosive on the market, and a few I mixed up myself that aren't.
Ooh, Nitro 9.
Got something to put this fire out. Spectrum are relying on you.
Yes, the giant cigarette lighter, I suspect, I mean, I've not seen pictures of it. I'm sure it's a very interesting and fascinating story that I don't have time to go into here, thankfully, because I don't know about it.
Why don't you do it?
But I suspect that's a huge influence on this episode, this character and the visuals.
You sure you're going to need a charge that big? You got a big blaze there, Kinley. Oil from these tremendous depths is highly combustible. You're not going to blow it out with a firecracker.
Blow it out?
Sure, like a candle. With explosives.
And I do like with this episode, and it's not something I can often say about
It's got to be placed.
Captain Scarlet, I kind of like the guest cast. Kinley and Jason Smith and other guy whose name I knew earlier but have now forgotten. The Captain Brown guy. They're nothing standout, but it's nice that they know each other and they all come across as professionals. It's nice to get a sense of there being other professionals in this world than Spectrum. These people working the oil rigs and Jason Smith here, professional firefighter extraordinaire. It's just nice. It's a very small thing, but these are all very credible characters.
Container at the end of the pole. When the heat melts the metal, then up it goes.
So Jason Smith is taking in his Firefly-like machine with an explosive charge on the end of a very long pole. And who's this watching from a distance? With nothing better to do, it's Captain Black and his trusty binoculars. Where would he be without them? And we already know from the way this is being played and the sinister music. Ooh, that's interesting though. Firstly, actually, I'm interested there. I've never noticed before, but Black's hands are normal human flesh coloured. It's quite noticeable when he's holding up the binoculars to his pale face. His hands are unchanged. But Jason has now got out of his truck. And this is a quite effective, if somewhat baffling, scene. Jason seems frozen. Black is just fixing on him intently. The spooky music is suggesting some powers of the Mysterons are being used to overcome Jason Smith. And he's now fallen. Black is put the binoculars back up to his face.
I didn't see him get clear. Don't worry, he's too old a hand to get near an explosion. He'll be all right.
Good job Scarlet was paying attention, because he's right, Jason Smith has not got out of there. And we actually end with a cliffhanger. Jason isn't dead yet. Will he get out of it? Well, we come back after the advert break and he's still collapsed.
Any second now.
Yeah, there's no hope for him, unfortunately. And it is quite horrible to see the body lying there. We know he's probably still alive, just unconscious. And then, ouch, oh, that always makes me wince. The fire is now out, but this massive beam,
good old Jason,
has fallen right across Jason's back and probably shattered his spine. He is now dead, because we have the Mysteron rings. The official seal of deadness in the Captain Scarlet universe. Once you see those rings, it's all over. Very brutal end to a character, but of course we're not done yet. In one of, I think, probably the more understated, chilling moments of the series, we find Jason Smith, the Mysteron, back in his truck, at the controls, still in the fire suit. He revs up those engines, drops the scoop, and pushes his body just into the debris. And it looks like the original Jason Smith puppet, just protected by the fire suit, obviously. I don't think the puppet was in any danger. But that's a fairly unpleasant moment of seeing his Mysteron replacement just burying his old body. That's quite chilling. Now it's night time. Jason Smith is in his truck. Truckington T truck. And it's another interesting moment here in the way Captain Black is presented, because here we have Jason working apparently as he normally would. He doesn't seem particularly Mysteron.
Who is it? Turn out the light, then you will see me.
Yeah, I'm not sure about this. It's odd. It kind of works. I think they've also made a really good choice with this puppet to play Jason Smith.
Come to pass on your instructions from the Mr.
Because he's got a really good sort of haunted, hypnotised expression.
Tomorrow,
it may be something to do with the way he's lit.
Refinery at Ben-Sheba.
But speaking of lighting, yeah, when Black told him to turn off the lights.
Tomorrow I will destroy the Spectrum refinery at Ben-Sheba.
Black was suddenly illuminated, and it's one of those strange moments that doesn't seem to quite track with the rest of the series, that Black is visible in darkness. It's just another sort of odd moment that you add to this collection of odd Mr. On and Black related moments that never quite make sense, but they're still very cool. Anywho, breakfast.
Well, the oil flow's under control. After we've cleaned up the mess, you'll never know anything happened.
Yeah. Jason Smith.
Except for the fact that you don't have a Rig 15.
Where is he, by the way?
He was up at dawn. Got in that old truck of his and left for the mountains. He's got another assignment at a dam project.
Pity. I would have liked to thank him on behalf of Spectrum. I can't tell you how important these rigs in the refinery are to us.
They make sure our vroom vrooms can drive places.
That's on your thanks to Jason next time I see him.
Yeah, so Jason is now following the pipeline back to the Ben-Sheba refinery. It's a lovely truck interior set as well, and I love this touch of, we see all this equipment, and I think we're meant to infer explosives in the back, and just the set wobbling as the truck moves along. It's just a lovely touch that helps bring this stuff to life.
Well, looks like everything's tied up here.
Yes, I'll report back to Cloud Base.
Captain Scarlet!
Ooh.
Come here, quick!
What is it?
We found something in the debris. It's Jason Smith.
Oh dear, yeah, that was always going to come back to bite them in the bum, wasn't it? Leaving their dead body around.
Incredible. I just don't understand. I saw him drive out of here this morning.
There's only one explanation. Jason Smith is in the hands of the Mysterons.
Oh, I've always meant to see if I could edit that line slightly.
Spotted him.
To make it, Jason King is in the hands of the Mysterons. If you know the Scarlet spoof videos I used to make on my YouTube channel, you can imagine what I might have been able to do with that. Anywho, Mysteron Jason Smith. Well, nobody actually seems bothered that the real one is dead. It's just, oh, he's such a nice guy. He's a really nice guy.
Captain,
can't tell you how much it all means to us. Oh, he's dead? Oh, well, never mind.
He's in fast.
Identification?
Yes, he's following the pipeline back to the Spectrum refinery, which is conveniently signposted for any terrorists who plan to attack it. Which, of course, calls for an SPV in a fuel storage tank. I guess this is at the Rig 15 site, or as near as makes no difference. Nearly there. Oh, there it is. Took its time to reveal that one. It's always worth it, though. I love a bit of Spectrum pursuit vehicle reveal. And the Angels are on the trail of Jason Smith's truck.
Have visual contact with the truck. It's on the road 15 miles east of the Spectrum refinery.
Captain Scarlet, Melody Angel reports sighting Jason's truck. He's on the Ben-Sheba Road about 15 miles from the refinery.
SIG.
I love with this that Blue has not gone along with Scarlet. And you can always sort of, well, not always, but sometimes tell Blue stays behind because we know that Scarlet is not gonna make it out alive in this episode. And in this case, good thing too that Blue doesn't go along because he would have been cooked. But within the context of, Blue being an equal, Scarlet's partner and an equal officer in Spectrum, it doesn't really make much sense for him to stay behind. I don't know what he's doing.
Get on to Ben-Sheba. Tell them to evacuate the refinery.
Oh, he's making a phone call. Okay, that's fine. I recognise that sound effect. It was later used in Attack on Cloud Base. That's the action station's siren in Cloud Base, which is quite effective and quite chilling there because you've never heard a sound like that on Cloud Base before.
I'm not going to make it. I'll have to cut across the desert.
And as much as I said I like the visuals in this episode, and I stand by that, I don't quite understand how this bit works. Because the pipeline to the refinery seems to be absolutely straight. There's no curve in the thing, at least not that we've seen. Jason Smith's truck is following it, the SPV is following it, Scarlett's decided he's not going to make it, so somehow he manages to take a shortcut which involves veering away to the right and then somehow coming back.
I have visual contact with the truck.
And having, shaved off a load of time.
It's about a mile ahead. Can you pinpoint?
Even though the pipeline just seems to be in a straight line.
Perimeter of the refinery. Time's running out.
I've never got that bit.
It has to be now.
Oh, yes, I know I'm not the only one who hasn't understood quite how that shortcut works. But it doesn't matter, because we have one of these amazing vehicle chase Mistron showdown thingies. And of course, Jason Smith has a whole canister of explosive thingies. I'm not quite sure why the hand artist decides to have 2 goes at pretending to throw the thing out of the truck cab. But anywho, got to get him away from the pipeline, because any explosion on the pipeline could flash back to the refinery, and that would never do. So Scarlett's positioning the SPV between the truck and the pipeline. And this is great. We're getting... Oh, it's just lovely. Jason Smith on the puppet stage with this puppet scale SPV side essentially just smashing into him, and it's just the attention to detail in sequences like this. Well, all of the show all the way along the line, but particularly moments like this are just gorgeous. Scarlett has almost succeeded in knocking Jason off course. One last bump. Yep, he's veered away from the refinery, and he hits a slight incline. That's it. Can Scarlett save himself? No, because he's crashed into the refinery now. Oh dear. Well, there is a slight fire at the refinery now. I think they may have put it out. They'll probably prioritise that over putting out the fire that is Scarlett's SPV. Oh dear, the poor guy did not come out of that well. But this is a nice ending.
The refinery and the pipeline are safe. That means Spectrum's supply of fuel is secure.
Hooray.
Thanks to Captain Scarlett. Did they find the body?
Yes, we've taken his, body back to Cloudbase.
Well, I say, body, it's more a collection of buckets, really. I can show you some pictures if you, aren't feeling too squeamish. But I do like this, this sort of, subdued, slightly somber tone.
Good. Dr. Fawn, we have a patient.
I also recognise the keep out sign at the refinery there. I think it might come from Stingray.
He's done a great job. And I'm sure you'll effect a complete recovery. Just make him comfortable. He'll do the rest.
Dr. Fawn? Are you there? Dr. Fawn! Oh my god! Well, that was Fire at Rig 15, and yep, as I said at the beginning, it's a lovely looking episode. It's never been one of my favourites, but it's good stuff. It's definitely, I would say, in the sort of higher half of the series. Probably only just, because I think, although the effects work here is gorgeous, there isn't really much in terms of a story to sort of make it one that's really, worth coming back to all that often. But it's a simple story, well told, and as I said, with some nice guest characters and some nice nods to real-world events as well, which is always nice to see in this show. But yeah, the effects, I mean, the story is named after the prime effect, so you're going to be onto a winner on the effects department with a title like Fire at Rig 15. Yeah, it's all-round good stuff, as Captain Scarlett generally tends to be. I do enjoy it. As I said, it's not a favourite. It'll never crack my top 10, I don't think. But, the effects work in this. All that fire, all those explosions. It's a lovely little showcase of effects work, particularly on the explosion front. So yeah, Fire at Rig 15 delivers fire and explosions aplenty. So, good stuff.
Dum 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 dum.
Oh, you like a bit of that, don't you?
Bit of. Oh yeah, I love me 7 dums.
Yes.
Is it 7? Dum 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 dum. It is 7.
Yes,
yeah.
it is. Yes,
Just checking. Sorry. Yes, thank you, Chris. Chris will be back with something else, which may or may not be Captain Scarlet next week on the Randomiser.
True, it could be, couldn't it?
Yeah. What have you got for us, Dickie, before we head off into the sunset?
Yeah, I just had a few comments on our YouTube channel because people have been commenting beneath various videos.
Oh, did you really? Did you really?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
for example,
nice.
beneath Pods 258 and 259, Ian Dealey says, great to hear the news about the lost Four Feather Falls script that was recently found. Could this be a future Big Finish project, perhaps? And I do hope that Anna Leon Brophy comes back to do more Thunderbirds audios. Her performance as Tintin is definitely FAB.
Yeah, she's great. Now, the Four Feather Falls thing, it's not really long enough to be a Big Finish project because you've got to mount the studio, you've got to have a director, all these people have got to come in for a day, and it's only a 10-minute script. You can't really do that for Big Finish, so I'm afraid not. But
It'd be nice to have it in some form, though, wouldn't it?
Some form would be amazing, and maybe one day we'll figure out how to do that. But no, I'm afraid for Big Finish, that is a no-go.
Yep, John Clay says, good Stingray episode. I look forward to more content on UFO, and I look forward to podcast 260.
Well, that's been and gone.
Yeah, hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
That one idiot posted, hi guys. I would want to say that I love watching you, but I'm on a year 6 residential for 5 days, so I can't listen to your wonderful clammy podcast. P.S. I'm 11, so am I the youngest listener?
Ooh, you
11.
could be. Now we
know some people do listen with their children, but that's perhaps different.
No, it's got to be. You've got to be a listener on your own.
Yes.
So, well, congratulations on potentially being our youngest listener. Sorry you can't come to the Space Centre.
Yeah.
If you're younger than 11, let us know. But I think you could well be. I'm sure we've definitely had a 12 and a 15.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like ratings now, but yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, welcome, young Podsteron.
Indeed. Welcome, young Podsteron. And now, also, one of the Fab Facts recently was about the bizarre end credit song used in some Italian versions of Space 1999, if you remember. Well, now, Graham's Compositions posted, in case anyone is interested, I've got a translation of the bizarre lyrics.
Really?
Want to hear them?
Are you going to sing it?
I don't know it well enough, but... Here are the lyrics. There's a monster that's destroying all the spaceships
and
reducing missiles and robots to 1,000 pieces.
Oh, no.
Space is full of mysteries.
It is.
Help me, SOS.
Or try.
From out of a black hole, it suddenly jumped aboard.
Gosh.
I feel it rummaging through my thoughts.
Oh, dear.
There's a blackout in my mind. Stop the rocket, Mr. Koenig.
Yes, please.
Help me, SOS.
Gosh.
Pretty good, aren't they?
I mean,
hardly Ivor Novello winning.
They're quite creative, but
there you go.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, as we know, there's tons to watch on the YouTube channel. Get lost for a weekend, why don't you?
Get lost.
Treat
All
yourself.
right, it's a bit harsh.
I meant in the Gerry Anderson
yourself
stuff
for a
on the,
weekend.
Yeah, that's the exactly. You know.
Get lost for a weekend, will you? All right.
Yeah. Sorry about that. It's my true feelings coming out.
Yeah.
The mask slipped.
It did. Well, despite your meanness. Sorry, very cruel, Richard James. We're still getting some nice ratings, would you believe?
Oh, yeah. Got one for me?
Can I read you one?
Please do.
This is from Glenn TB2, and the review title is Fabulous Podcast. 5 stars. Glenn, what can I say?
Don't know.
And that's the end of it. No, he actually does go on to say something. He says,
I see. Good, yes.
What can I say other than it's a great show that any Ander fan can enjoy? Jamie, Chris and Richard do a fantastic job every week, and I cannot wait for more. Great job, guys. Ooh. Well, thank you, Glenn TB2, for that lovely review.
Ooh. I mean, it's lucky he should say he can't wait for more because, well, that's what we got, isn't it? Coming up.
Oh,
more
yeah,
podcasts.
You can't escape the moreness of our podcast.
Oh, no. Very moreish.
We'll keep going, I'm afraid.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that. Anyway, anything else you'd like to add for the end of 261?
No, I think that's all for now.
Okay, I mean, the thing is, will next be 262, and is that the live one?
Yes, it is. Yes, that's right.
We'll be live for Pod 262 next week.
That's a pretty quick turnaround, because we'll be doing it on the Saturday, and it'll be out on the Monday, so, it's only be a couple of days out if you can't make it on the day.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yes, you'll be very close to live, or close to normal to live, so do tune in then, and apologies in advance for any audio quality bumps. And we'll be back to normal, sort of, for Pod 263.
Normal for us, yeah.
Yeah, our sort of Gubbinsy normal. But there we go. We'll be back in 263, but obviously 262 live next week. So we'll see you then, Podsterons, for some live clammy ears.
Bye.
Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
Now, I've said live clammy ears, but of course, nobody's going to get clammy ears for the live one because nobody's wearing headphones.
Right, okay.
Are they? So
I suppose
it's
not, no.
arid ears.
Yeah, right, okay, fine.
Maybe I was going to say clammy bottoms, but I don't mean that because
Jamie.
everybody's sitting down on those slightly uncomfortable chairs.
All right. Now, actually, here's a call out to our wonderful Podsterons who can make it on the day and have already booked their tickets for both Fab Live and for the podcast.
Yes.
Do come prepared with any questions or comments that you want to ask during the broadcast, because I'm hoping to get in amongst you, as we've done before, to get your innermost thoughts on the podcast and all things Gerry Anderson. So be prepared to be part of the show. You don't have to if you don't want to. That's fine. But if you've got a question, bring it in.
Yes. Do I have to think of one?
Well, you can if you want, yes. Well, you don't have to tell me now.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, I'll try and think of an interesting question for the live pod.
Okay.
But I'm sure it won't be as interesting as our Podsterons questions.
No, not at all. Exactly.
Good. All right. Well, I'm really looking forward to doing it.
Me too.
And it's going to be great.
Yes.
And also looking forward to a bit of a live clammy bottom. My own, that is.
And a live curry.
Oh, and a live curry! Yes! Oh, I'm so excited about that. Anyway, we can discuss that.
We finished on food again, haven't we?
I know
we always do that.
We did, but we can discuss the curry and review it in the live on the Sunday.
Good idea. Great. Yes.
Can't
all right.
wait.
No.
Right. Off to think about questions and curry.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.